Welcome everybody to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today I want to talk about constitutional carry, or permitless carry in some states. As you may know, we've been winning a lot of victories in some states lately, some real victories, with permitless carry, allowing citizens to carry a firearm without a permit. You don't have to go and pay the government a fee to have a right you should already enjoy, which is to be able to protect yourself out and about with your firearm. Now, this is, like I said, a great win for the gun community. It's one of those things that shows clearly how much better off we are now than we were 25 years ago. Because believe me, I was old enough to carry a gun 25 years ago, and I can tell you how rare it was and how hard it was to get to be able to do it in most places. And in a lot of places, you couldn't do it at all. So we've come a long way. But there seems to be a lot of people that are still concerned about maybe some downfalls of constitutional carry or permitless carry. They're afraid there might be a bunch of cons that come with it. Well, today I wanted to go over a few of those pros and cons and discuss them and determine, are there really that many risks involved with permitless carry, or is it just, people worried about nothing? So let's discuss a couple of the things. First off, let's talk about what permitless carry does. Like I said, it just allows you, if you own a gun, if you're a legal possessor of a firearm, it says that you can conceal it now out in public. It's not always open carry. It's not always concealed carry. It can sometimes be one or the other, but that's the difference between constitutional carry and permitless carry. Permitless carry can say you can either open carry without a permit or you can conceal carry without a permit, depending on what state you're in. Constitutional carry just says you can carry however you want without a permit. So there's one thing we can cover right off the bat, the difference there. But for this video, we're going to pretend like they're basically the same thing. A lot of states get into permitless carry. So what it does is it allows you, if you're a legal possessor of a firearm, to carry that firearm in public for the purpose of self-defense. What it doesn't do, doesn't make guns more available, doesn't expand who can buy a gun, who can own a gun, doesn't do any of that. So it doesn't increase the number of guns that are out there, and it doesn't increase the number of bad guys that are going to commit crimes with guns. It just says if you're a legal possessor of a firearm, you can carry it for self-defense. So I don't really see any cons there, because like I said, it's not doing anything really other than saying if you have a gun, you can carry it. It's not making more people have guns. It's not making it more legal for more people to own guns. It's not making it any of those things. So not too worried about that. But let's see what it does do. Some people say, well, one of the big cons of this now is that there's going to be no training requirement. That's a big con. No one's going to be trained. They're going to be out there carrying guns without being trained. Well, I don't see that as an actual con. I think that is something people have been brainwashed into, not just by anti-gunners in the government, but by the tactitards on YouTube who are like, if you don't have umpteen hours of training and this many 100 hours of training from me especially, you aren't qualified to carry a gun in public, and you better not do it till you've been trained because I want to pump up my business and I want to get rich off this. It's not true at all. Guns are very simple tools. A father can teach a son how to use a firearm properly, responsibly, easily, in a very short period of time. A person who is the least bit mature and responsible can teach themselves how to operate a firearm in very little time. Doesn't take a lot. They are not complicated machines. This is not engine mechanics. It's point the end with the hole in it only at things you want to destroy, and keep your finger off the trigger until you do want to destroy something. And then it's just basically safe storage, safe carry, how to properly carry, things like that, stuff you can easily teach yourself. So the whole no training thing is not a con. And in fact, a lot of people are going to say, well, but when people don't have training, maybe they won't misuse their guns, but we'll have a lot more accidents. Like I said, no, it's not that hard to figure out how to use a gun. And if you want to see that in the real world, look at states that are right next to each other that share pretty much every aspect of life, every style of being other than their gun laws, like Washington and Oregon, where Oregon has more extensive training requirements and testing requirements and all this other stuff. In fact, you have to go take a class. You have to have range time. You have to pass a proficiency test to get your carry permit. Washington, you have to be able to write a check for $65, I believe it is. Been a long time since I had to do it. Big difference there. But as far as accidental deaths or injuries with firearms, there's really no difference between the two states. So that shows you that training requirement really doesn't matter. And you can do that pretty much with any state. Looking at states that have training requirements, states that don't, you won't see much of a difference. So that kind of dispels the idea that these guns are so complicated. And to be able to properly use one, you have to pay some instructor, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to sign a paper saying you're now qualified. That's just garbage. So the no training is not a con. It's not even a factor as far as I'm concerned. Another con people bring up is, well, now gangbangers will be able to carry guns. They'll be able to just openly carry or conceal carry, and if the cops catch them carrying, they won't be able to do anything to them. Now they can do stuff to them if they don't have a permit. They can get those gangbangers off the street. So that's a con, that they won't be able to do that anymore. And the people who say this, I'm like, fuck that. I don't believe the police should be able to harass someone just because they possess a firearm, if they can legally possess that firearm. Here's the thing. If a gangbanger, as you want to call them, can legally possess a gun, they can legally possess a gun. If they haven't committed any crimes to where they can't, I don't care if they're a gangbanger. Just because they subscribe to a style of life that I don't agree with doesn't mean they're somehow have their constitutional rights rescinded because I don't agree with them. I don't like the way they dress or the social structures they have. Or if they're not breaking the law, they're not a criminal, then who gives a fuck? The police shouldn't be able to harass them because they legally purchased a firearm and then carried it for self-defense. People who live in these inner cities and places where gangs are prevalent and stuff, a lot of times they have more of a reason to need a gun for self-defense for non-nefarious purposes than you or I do. So I don't see that as a negative. If they are a felon, a criminal, and they can't possess a gun, well, that's different. This law doesn't make them able to possess a gun. Doesn't change the fact that they can't own one because they're a felon, even though I don't agree with that either if you're not in prison. But this law doesn't change that. So if a cop sees a guy who he knows is a felon and sees he has a gun, well, he can still do something because that guy can't possess that firearm. That's not taken away from police. What's taken away is their ability to harass people who are not prohibited people simply because they don't like or trust that person over them possessing a firearm. And I don't agree with that anyway, so I don't see that as a con. If a gangbanger, quotes again, wants to buy a gun, they can afford to buy a gun, they can find a gun to buy legally, then who cares if they carry one for self-defense? Like I said, they probably got more reason than you or I do to carry one. So I don't really see that as a con either. Something someone brought up to me that they said would be a negative is that just general everyday people who own guns but don't carry them now because they have to get a permit and they don't want to go to that trouble, they're not that responsible, will now be able to just carry their guns. So we'll have people that aren't responsible carrying their guns. Or maybe they got bad tempers. That's part of being irresponsible, maybe, that they got a bad temper. So we'll have these people with bad tempers carrying guns. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't go around policing people as to what rights they should and shouldn't have based on what I think they might do. Don't agree with that at all. That's not freedom. And I really don't think it's that big of an issue. I don't think there's that many crazy, irresponsible people out there that would be carrying a gun. Most people that are that not together, let's just say, in their life, don't usually possess firearms. They very seldom can get the money put together to buy a gun if they're that irresponsible. Or make that many bad decisions. Like if they're penniless living in a trailer, it's going to be a little harder for them to buy a gun. And just because they are penniless and living in a trailer doesn't mean they'll commit a crime with a gun if they have one. So that whole notion of thinking, well, there's certain people that just shouldn't carry, I don't agree with that. I mean, I agree there are certain people that shouldn't carry, But I don't think I get to decide that for everybody. And I don't think you get to decide that. And even less, I think the government shouldn't get to decide that. So I don't go for that. I don't think most people are going to be these angry, hot-headed, fly off the rails at the slightest provocation type of person. I just don't think that most people are like that. And here's another thing from a psychological perspective. A lot of people that are like that, they're like that because of a feeling of powerlessness, helplessness. If you have a firearm on you, maybe that will reduce some of those feelings. Maybe it'll make you feel more responsible because now you'll know, hey, I have the ability to inflict deadly harm on someone. I have to be more responsible. I'm got a responsibility here now. Before they had no responsibilities, nothing. Because, like I said, they felt powerless, they felt helpless. Now they've got something they have to take care of. It's like the people that you know that are complete screw-ups until they really have to step up and they have a child or something and they make themselves a better person. Doesn't always happen, but it can happen, and I think everyone should have that opportunity. So I won't use that there might be a tiny percentage of the population that are not fit to carry guns who will now carry guns as an excuse to deny people their rights. Because like I said, I don't think it's very many people. And the ones that are really bad, I don't think will even have the gun to carry. And other ones I think might step up to the responsibility. So I don't really see that as a con either. It's just, like I said, guns are still going to be the same price. And there will be some people that I guess get guns illegally and carry them. That still won't be legal under these laws. If you've got a stolen gun and you're carrying it and the police can show the gun is stolen or the gun was bought illegally on the black market, then they can make that case. They can still do that if they feel the need to do that. But chances are they won't, because that's always just something they try to use to persecute people they don't like. Because unless that person actually commits a crime with that gun, why would you bother to look and see if it's legal? Or if you know that person is a prohibited person, why would you, if you didn't know that about them, why would you look? And if a cop suspects someone might be prohibited and they're carrying a gun, they can always make contact with that person for one reason or another through legal means and just say, okay, this guy, I looked him up, doesn't have a felony record, doesn't have anything to prohibit him from owning that gun, so I'm not going any further. If they do have a felony record, then they can't legally carry a gun. So, like I say, a lot of this is just a lot of people worried about taking away power from the cops that the cops shouldn't even have. So, I don't think that's a con at all. Now, there is one other con people talk to me a lot about. And that is other states won't recognize your right to carry. Because if you don't have a permit in your state, other states that still require permits are going to say, well, we no longer have reciprocity with, say, Ohio if they pass constitutional carry. That is a negative. That I can't find a positive side to that one because that's true. Like if the state of Washington today said, okay, no more permits, we're constitutional carry, the states that I now have reciprocity in because of my Washington permit would say, nope, no more reciprocity. If you're going to carry in our state, you're going to have to get our permit. And if it's a state I go to regularly, I'll show them that and I will get an out-of-state permit if they offer one. So that is a negative. There will be slight negatives like that until constitutional carry becomes the law of the land, for the entire United States, which I hope it someday will be. That is the one con you will face. Your permit will not be valid in states that say we don't honor constitutional carry in this state. You have to have a valid issued state permit. So states that you now have reciprocity with, you may not if you become a constitutional carry state. That's pretty much the only con I can really think of. Guns aren't going to be more available. Guns aren't going to be cheaper. People who can't legally own guns now won't be able to legally own them after constitutional carry. People who carry guns illegally already, there's not going to be any change to that. People who get harassed when they carry a gun even though they've done nothing wrong with it, just because the police don't like them, they'll be shielded somewhat. And you can look at that as bad, but I would suggest you question your own commitment to the Second Amendment if you do that. But I know this has been long and this has been rambly here, but I just wanted to do this to point out to people out there that are worried about the downsides of constitutional carry or permitless carry. There's very few. There are some risks involved, of course, but that's what it's like when you have a free society. There are some risks. You can mitigate your own risks by being prepared to defend yourself, not being involved in bad situations, stay out of bad areas. If you see a conflict beginning between some people, like a potential fight or something at the mall or wherever, don't go towards it, go away from it. Just make good decisions in your own life, carry your own firearm for protection, and the risk from these types of things, the people who misuse firearms, will pretty much only still be for the people that they would target for crimes anyway, whether this law existed or not, and to each other. Because if you got two unqualified, incompetent people that just aren't the right type of people to carry, they usually find each other and become a problem for each other. Other people walk away from them. So, like I said, there's lots of pros to this. The pro is it's the way it should be. People should be free. We have a Second Amendment rights, and we should be able to exercise them without government involvement. The cons, you might have to be more careful about what state you carry to if you live in a constitutional state. But that's not the biggest con I could possibly think of in the world, so I'm willing to accept it. So as far as permitless carry, constitutional carry goes, in my opinion, it's just a good thing across the board, and the pros far outweigh any cons if there's actually any real ones to worry about. All right, everybody, I rambled on quite a while there, more so than I intended to. And like I say, I'm trying to keep these under 20 minutes. I'm trying to keep them down to 15 minutes, but I'm finding that nearly impossible. So since I rambled so much, I'm going to go ahead and move on now to end the show with our viewer EDC of the day. And today we have Roy T. And as you can see, Roy is carrying his Micro 9 Raptor from Kimber in a Winthrop holster on his quite fancy leather belt there. It's quite a fancy belt. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to show this picture today is because he is carrying a Micro 9. I think a lot of people discount these guns. They just be like, I don't want that gun. But they'll move on to like an LCP 380 if they want something small, while discounting the little 9mm. Nowadays, the way they make these 9mm so small and still so reliable and so easily able to handle the caliber, 380s have very little place in the gun community these days, unless you're really recoil sensitive. So I wish more people would pay more attention to these little Micro 9s because they are awesome. They are great little guns. I know a lot of people out there right now that are carrying underpowered guns because they want something small when one of these Micro 9s could have fit the bill perfectly. So just wanted to say that before I move on in here. And as I move on, I want to say one thing that always bugs me in these pictures is, one, bed skirt. Get a bed skirt. How hard is it to get a bed skirt? Or at least get a bed frame that doesn't just have a box springs sitting on a metal frame so that you don't look like you live in a trailer. It's not hard. I'm not even slamming people who live in trailers, but if you live in a trailer, get a bed skirt. How hard is it? They're cheap. They usually come with the sheets. So I just never understand that, why people don't have bed skirts on their bed. It's not like you're a bunch of college students. It looks like a frat house. Also, make your bed. I'm not saying make your bed every day. I don't make my bed. I never make the bed. I'll just admit that now. I don't make the bed. Our bed gets made every day. I don't make it. I don't do laundry or make the bed. But make your bed if it's going to be in the picture. Or here's a better idea yet. If it's not made, don't put it in the picture. Move on. And I kind of thought, well, maybe he's a frat boy or something. But then I started putting two together here, and I said, well, his name is Roy. And no one's named their kid Roy since the 1970s, I'm pretty sure. He mentioned in his email that he sometimes wears a vest for concealment. I don't think anyone under the age of 50 wears a vest. And in one of the pictures, and now this is going to be very sad, people. If you think a skirtless, unmade bed is sad, this is even sadder. He has a phone cradle on his belt, which to me screams, I wear socks with my sandals, and I am definitely over 50 years old. So all these things combined tells me you have no excuse for not making your bed or buying a bed skirt, Roy. But like I said, all those things being said and me venting on my triggers here, Nice little setup, nice little 9mm micro gun. I even like the Kimber better than I do the SIG 938 because I think it's just a smoother gun, fits better in the hand. So I think this is a great setup here, and it really illustrates that if you want to go to something really small, you don't always have to go to a subpar caliber. Nowadays, we have really small guns in very acceptable calibers, and one of them is this Kimber Raptor Micro 9, like our concealed carrier of the day here, Roy T, is carrying. All right, everybody, that's our show for today. Before I leave, I want to thank everybody for participating in the caliber conversion poster fundraiser. Those are now sold out, and we should be funding the vet bills tonight during the live chat. We'll do that live. We'll send the money over to the owner of the puppy there. So just wanted to thank everyone who participated. Hope you enjoy your posters. And every time you look at them, remember you did something good for a pup in need. And with that being said, I'll sign off today, as I usually do, by saying as far as the state of the world today is concerned, well, you know, it is what it is. But if we continue to keep our heads about us and ignore the fearmongers and the profiteers, what it will be in the future is better.